Thank you for joining me today. So let's go ahead and start with the questions. Before you joined KCP, what were you hoping to get out of the experience and how did it end up changing you as a person?
I'd actually previously lived in Japan working as an English teacher. And in that time, I was living in north of Tokyo, around 2 hours in a smaller, suburb type city. And so one of the things I wanted to experience was living in a big city like Tokyo. And the other thing I wanted to experience was just significant improvement in my Japanese ability from just taking intensive classes at KCP. And I think how it changed me is I found out I really loved living in Tokyo. It's where I want to live in the future, and it significantly improved my Japanese, much more than I thought it would in the time I was there.
Can you describe a moment in class when you really felt your Japanese skills click, or maybe a time when a teacher helped something really make sense in your head?
I'd studied Japanese in the past in college. I'd always struggled with the passive verb ending. I never quite understood how to use it correctly, despite lots of explanation. But when we were going over it at KCP, since the class is immersive Japanese, only taught in Japanese, it was being explained to us, and it eventually just finally clicked for me after all that time. Finally becoming able to understand it was that the being explained how it works in Japanese, instead of hearing an explanation in English and then trying to use Japanese passive thing, being taught in Japanese made things like the passive verb endings that didn't click before finally click. Something about the Japanese explanation just made it all fit together.
Tell us what part of your daily routine at KCP brought you the most joy or surprise.
I guess it's not quite actually at KCP, but I was surprised. I really enjoyed my commute to KCP. In total every day, I was probably commuting an hour and 10 minutes. And I rode the subway to KCP and then had to walk around 10 minutes to the school. I just really enjoyed that, which I was surprised by. And then something actually at KCP that I really enjoyed was just getting to speak to the teachers in between the two sections of class. There's a 15-minute break during class, and I would often just speak to the teachers for a good portion of that time and just learn things about Japan or about the teachers themselves, and I really enjoyed doing that.
Tell me about your housing or your homestay. What's a memory or moment that really stuck with you from that experience?
I was a bit different than most people at KCP. I actually stayed at, I arranged an apartment on my own. I didn't stay at the apartment, at the dorms or at a homestay. At my apartment, I often didn't see people at my apartment. So I'd get in the elevator, go to my room, and I think the first month I didn't see actually anyone in my building. But one day I got in the elevator and this old Japanese lady got on the elevator with me. And we just had a brief conversation, and I really enjoyed that conversation. And after that, I actually started to see more people in the elevator or in the building, and had more just little conversations here and there in Japanese that I could feel as the course progressed, that I was getting more out of those conversations and better questions and answer better. And I really enjoyed that. That first conversation I answered in more formal Japanese. As time went on, I realized they were speaking to me in more casual Japanese, and I was able to practice more casual Japanese, which I had always, when I studied in college, I'd always struggled with using the more casual Japanese because my classes were always focusing on the more formal Japanese. But at KCP, there was a lot of speaking practice, and part of that practice was practicing casual, so I could see that improving just in the real world.
Was there a cultural experience or encounter in Japan that completely changed how you see the world, or maybe how you see yourself?
So since this was actually my second time living in Japan, there wasn't I was more used to the culture and stuff. But one thing that surprised me was I was just talking to a Japanese person. I'm always used to speaking to Japanese people about Japanese things like anime or video games. But I was speaking to this woman, and she started bringing up American cartoons like SpongeBob, and she was telling me how great SpongeBob is. And I never really thought about Japanese people watching American cartoons because I was so used to American people and other people from other countries watching like Japanese anime. It just surprised me to realize that, oh yeah, there is this like culture of people in Japan that really enjoy stuff out of America.
What's one way the KCP staff made you feel seen or supported? Talk to us about how they made you feel understood during your time abroad.
One simple one, just every day when I got to the building, walking through the entrance hall, whoever was at the front desk that day, they usually just say like konnichiwa, and something about that made me always just feel good. And then also just having conversations, as I mentioned in a previous question, having conversations in the 15-minute break between the two halves of class with the teachers felt like the teachers cared about my progress and how I was doing, just like living in Japan and anything in my personal life.
What was it like building relationships with students in the program? Are there any friendships or memories that really stand out to you?
Yeah, I was surprised how quickly I just started to get along with other students, especially because when I was in college, I wasn't the best at making new friendships quickly. But at KCP, I'd speak to someone like just briefly one day, and then suddenly we were friends and talking for or after class every day. And I was also surprised how this wasn't just with the students that spoke English, it was also with like the Chinese students or Korean students that we could only converse in Japanese, but we were able to become friends with just speaking Japanese. And I think one memory that really stuck out to me was after the end of my first term, after the final, most of my class, probably 15 students, we all went out for dinner, and it was just a really memorable experience.
Looking back, what's one moment that made you realize how much you have grown either personally or academically?
I'd grown a lot academically when there was a bar I would go to a lot, and the owners spoke English, and we usually spoke in English, but we'd use a little bit of Japanese. But one time I went there and he only spoke to me in Japanese for about an hour. And when I left, I realized that I just used Japanese for a whole hour and I'd understood everything that had been said. And I realized that I just progressed a lot since I started at KCP.
How has your experience at KCP really shaped what you want to do next, whether that's in school, work, or life?
Before going to KCP, I had lived in Japan, but in a smaller city. It's probably like compared to an American suburb. And a part of going to KCP, I wanted to experience life in Tokyo and see how I'd like that. And after spending my time at KCP, I realized I want to live and work in Tokyo, and hopefully doing that in a job that uses Japanese.
If someone is thinking about joining KCP, what would you say to them? What do you wish someone had maybe told you before you went on this experience?
I would tell someone that's thinking about going to KCP that there's a lot of time to have fun outside of class, just on your own, but you need to be serious about studying Japanese. You have to work hard every day, studying and doing the homework. And I really think it's beneficial if you, outside of class, try to speak as much Japanese as possible just with people you run into in your day-to-day life. Something I wish I'd been told before going was I wish I'd gotten a student visa before I went, because I actually only went originally for one term for the 2.5 months, and I used a tourist visa. And then after that one term, I decided to go back for another term where I'd leave Japan and then come back on another tourist visa. But I really wish someone had told me I should have gotten the student visa when I first went, so I could have stayed even longer than the 6 months I did. And I'm actually hoping to go back to KCP with the student visa in the future.